Hi guys, welcome back to another layout update. So this layout update, to let you know, is going to be filmed over a course of probably a month and a half. Used more as a progress video to show how I'm coming along with the layout. I will be starting the upper level very shortly here, so I figure it's probably best to do more of a progress video to show you guys how I do things. Unlike last video when I basically just showed you everything at once, but at the same time kind of showed you how I got things done in certain amounts of time and whatnot. So I have a few things accomplished that I'll show you here in just a moment, so stay tuned. So as you can see, I have completed the grade, well, more or less completed the grade. I finished the staircase pattern. So all I had to do is add this little 1.5 foot section here, and then this 7 foot section, and then another 8 foot section up above. And the reason I'm doing a staircase sort of construction, I guess you could call it, is just to give me some extra room, or just to give me some extra room to do some scenery like cliff sides and rock faces and whatnot. Because the plan is for this grade obviously to be more mountainous terrain, and there will be some fairly large cliffs in and around here. That's why the staircase came down so quickly, to allow me for the track, or to allow the track to sit at a higher level, to add more of I guess a cliff side, I guess you could say. So let's move on to the next thing I have completed, and I'll show you something that I've just recently picked up from a local hobby store. Alright, so this only took me probably maybe an hour, but I got the rest of the plywood into that little cove there and around here. This section of plywood I believe was in last layout update, not too sure, but a little bit of plywood on the other side of the wall there, as the track needs to cross a gate by the toolbox, and then finish the plywood all the way to about where those drills are right there. And that's basically it for the plywood that I had from the last layout. So I'm gonna have to go and purchase maybe 3-4 sheets at the most to complete the yard. And before I do that, I'll probably end up just starting the upper level, and then I'll get the plywood for the upper level and the yard at the same time. Another thing that I just recently completed, actually tonight, is this little extension out here. That's where the repair and place tracks will be, or the car shops for any damaged cars, and it also adds an extra job for the switch crew in the yard to operate. So that's all the progress as of February 9th. Now let's switch the camera over to some products that I just recently picked up that I'm quite excited about. Alright, so what I picked up are these newly released North American Railcar Corporation potash hoppers. Some of you may recall back in August 2015 at the Portland, Oregon train show, I grasped basically every moment I could possibly get with these cars. So there's a large chunk of a video that was dedicated to these, and some of you guessed maybe that I had some of these ordered, and you guessed right. So what I have here is 4 out of the 5 potash variants, or potash car variants. You have a PTEX. There's 2 PTEX potash cars. This one with the dotted safety stripes, the red and white safety stripes, and the other one have the yellow dashes, just like the rest of the car. And the biggest difference between the PTEX and the rest of the cars is they are a shade lighter in that olive green or / gray color. So as you can see, the CITX potash hopper is a little bit darker, and that is per prototype. So that's kind of neat that North American Railcar Corporation took the color difference into account. The other 2 cars are GCLX, or CGLX rather, and CITX. These are all road numbers that I see on these trains coming down here through the lower mainland. So had to get them. I got 24 total, which will give me a nice size unit train. Probably won't buy any more unless the dollar, the Canadian dollar, comes back to par with the US dollar, because they weren't cheap, but I definitely recommend the cars. I will be doing a more in-depth review later on, but super detailed, top-notch cars. They have these free-rolling trucks on here, friction-free, and they roll like a bugger, so that's very nice. Like I said, I'll go into a greater or more depth with these cars at a later date. Probably once the weather gets better, and I'll review them on my module outside. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more progress on the layout. So 20 minutes worth of work. I added this extension piece in here. That is where the sanding and refueling tracks in the engine terminal will sit. And just to the right of that, in this section here on the first benchwork I constructed there for the yard, will be the engine maintenance facility, and that will be probably the Walters kit, the 3-stall engine facility. So that's what I got accomplished there. I also screwed this middle leg into the floor, and then at a later date, probably tomorrow, I will add some cross bracing, because as you can see, it's quite, it isn't that sturdy just quite yet, but I did add a cross brace at that end, as you can see down there, and it seems to sturdy it up quite a bit. So I'll go ahead and continue adding cross braces on all the legs all the way down the yard section, and that should stiffen up the wall quite substantially. So let me get back to work, and we'll see you next time. So I'm back again, and as you can see, I have got some more bracing in on the legs underneath the yard section. The only leg I have to do is that far one there, and that's because I ran out of 2x2 that was long enough. Sorry, I'm freehanding this, might be a little bit shaky, but the tripod can't really get down this low. So I finished the bracing, and it actually sturdied up the wall quite a bit. Does not move as much. Very little actually. I mean, as long as no one's roughing around with it or jumping on it or anything, I should be fine. And plus, once I get the plywood on top, everything should really stiffen up. And we'll get back to you in just a moment here. Alright, so another thing I've accomplished is the beginning of the upper level bench work. Now this is quite exciting for me because I'm getting closer to the final product of the bench work for the layout. And as you can see, I managed to get all the way around here, past the saw, and just past the saw a little bit more, but I won't go any further because of the bad angle here. But this was all an hour and a half worth of work, and that is pretty much, I'm gonna say, maybe almost a quarter of the upper level bench work. All that's required really is cutting the 2x2, and how I am securing this is L-shaped brackets, which I'll show you up close here. So these are the L-shaped brackets I'm using. They're just aluminum, I believe, and pretty solid actually. They don't flex at all. And how I'm using these is obviously screwing them into the upright. Go ahead and zoom in. So I'm screwing them into the upright, 4 screws, and screwing them into the cross beam that comes out from the wall in 4 different places. Now the only problem with these brackets so far is that I've had to actually drill an extra hole right in here, because the only holes were these 4, and it actually didn't give didn't really give that much support. Needed something closer to the upright. So basically a lot of the time has been spent drilling out these brackets, and I'm going to be almost 80, 90, maybe almost 100 brackets by the time this is all done. So that is quite time consuming. And as you can see that this bracket isn't, or this piece here isn't that sturdy. So what I'm doing to really sturdy it up is putting a screw on an angle in this way. And that, as you can see, that's really quite solid now. So with the bracket along with a screw on an angle, I should have no problems with flimsy bench work. And like I said, as long as no one's really jumping on it, there's no real weight on the upper level other than track and some scenery. So I'm not too concerned about it. And then obviously I have to put the front 2x4 that connects all these pieces together. Obviously it's longer and it goes the whole stretch, but that's what I have got accomplished. And I'll probably go ahead and do the other side of the saw there and start over the intermodal yard over there tonight. And I'm gonna have to devise a plan as to how I'm gonna do this peninsula that comes out, because that's pretty much the deepest part of the upper level. So it'll need a little bit more support than the rest. So let me get to that and I'll return shortly. All right, so back the next day here. I didn't quite get around to filming last night, but I continued the upper level. So I added these 3 pieces in here, which takes me to this small little peninsula, and that's the area I'm going to have to do some thinking about as to how I'm going to construct that section. So I went ahead and skipped it, and I completed this stretch here. So all these pieces coming out I just installed, and now all I have to do is add the front piece to secure all of them together, and then plywood will be needed. And before that I might even go into that little cove there and up to this section here. So I'll be back shortly. I'm going to be going to get some more 3/4 inch plywood for this yard section here, and after that I will probably continue the upper level, so stay tuned. So about 3 hours later, I have the plywood installed for the yard section, which means the entire lower level bench work is complete with the exception of the foam. The foam I will be installing shortly. The only thing I still have to do is at this end here, and you can see, sorry for my zooming here, as you can see this piece is a little higher than the rest, so all I have to do is put a 2x4 underneath and screw it in on both sides of the plywood, and it should suck the pieces together and it'll make it nice and level. So got to do that yet, and I still have to finish some bracing underneath the layout in this yard section, because the bench work is still a little bit wobbly. Sorry, I just knocked the camera there, but still a little bit wobbly, so I want to try and stiffen the bench work up just a little bit, and then I should be happy with that. So I'll get back to you once that work is complete. So basically what I did was I installed this front piece right here, and that connected each and every one of these studs basically together. So now everything is very, very solid and it doesn't move. Actually, I'd say it's almost more solid than down the middle here for sure. It is, like I said, very solid, and I'll probably later on I'll do a video once I move on to the middle section there. I'll actually start doing the video on how I put the upper level together, because I find that there isn't actually a whole lot of videos on YouTube that show actually how to do this. I know a few do, but not a whole lot of good videos out there. So I'll try and put a video together for sure. And for this little peninsula right here, this isn't actually done just quite yet. I'm gonna actually have to install a wall right in the middle here. and that's because it's so far from the wall that it does move a little bit. And plus that wall will act as a scene divide because the track will come from that corner out and around through a tunnel and back in towards the wall. So that will act as a scene divide. It will also support this upper level section here. And I was kind of debating whether or not to bring this piece right out to the width of the bottom level from the wall. And the reason I was thinking that is because there's going to be a tunnel in this section here, so I was thinking I'd probably bring the fascia right up to the top, but I wasn't really too sure, so I just went with the safe route, which was offsetting it just a little bit. That way you can see the bottom level no problem. Still got to add a few more things to here. I got to add a post out here and in, and I've been going basically, the only thing I've been screwing into for the upper level is straight into the posts. So I have to, in order to make this offset by 3/4 of a foot, I have to build another little box in here. And then the plywood on top will have the rounded edges, and it will be the shape that I need it to be. This is just very simple bench work for right now, because I don't feel like having a bunch of little angles in on the corners. It just gets too complicated. So we'll see you next time there is some progress. All right, so I continued along with the bench work, and as you can see, I have finished the bench work inside that little cove there. And coming along down the center now that I've started the bench work, this is where it gets a little bit ugly, I guess you could say. And the only reason why it looks the way it does is because there's going to be a bridge scene there, and I didn't want to make it look like the bridge was going over a very shallow little river. I just wanted to add some more depth to it. So what I did is I dropped the bench work in that section down 1.5 inches, and then with the 1/4 inch plus 1 inch foam on top of that, it will make it, it'll add a little bit more depth to it. And I've been having, like I said, a little bit of problems doing that, only because this side here, being that it's just a short little span, was sitting a little bit lower than this side over here, and it was making this section look way out of whack. Made it look really quite odd. So it took a little bit of messing around with, and it's a little bit hokey pokey, I guess you could say, but the fascia and the plywood on top and everything else is gonna hide that, so I'm not too worried. And next, I gotta get more supplies, more brackets, because I used up the brackets I got now, and I gotta get more lumber to continue on down the center of the room here. See you in a bit. So I picked up a few new things from the hobby shop today, and 2 of the things are these brand new Bowser Canadian built SD40-2s. I got one in the Canadian Pacific dual flag paint scheme, and another in the DM&E paint scheme. I took these out of the box and just kind of set up my Digitrack system very temporarily, make sure they ran, and I'm absolutely blown away with these locomotives. They are fantastically detailed and they sound fantastic as well. I'll try and get around to doing a review on these sometime. I can't promise when, but it will be coming, and I'll show a little bit more in depth in a new video series that I have coming up here. So stay tuned for that. I also picked up 2 of these Athearn Trinity 3-bay GATX hoppers. These actually came into the hobby shop probably, I think it was end of October of last year. I haven't been to the hobby shop in that long, so I just didn't get a chance to pick these up. Again, very nice pieces of rolling stock, and I'll go a little bit more in depth with these in a new video series that I will be starting very shortly. So stay tuned and on the lookout for that. So just a small update here. I decided to take apart the bench work where this bridge scene was and reconstruct it. The reason I did that is because I didn't like the way it looked. I thought it still looked a little bit too shallow, and I thought it just overall wasn't very appealing with my carpentry skills. Nothing was really as level as it could have been. So I took it down, and instead of just a 2x2 underneath another 2x2, I decided to replace that with a 2x4, which makes it about 3 or so inches deeper than what it was previously. So I think it looks a lot better. You can see I have the bridge mocked up right there. I think that gives it a decent height now off from the river. And I also went ahead and took the strip that connected these two pieces out, because that piece was warped, and instead of having smaller sections, once I get some more lumber supplies, I'm just going to put an 8-footer or 10-foot section of 2x2 that will connect a whole bunch of the beams that will continue down that way, just to make everything kind of more of a whole rather than having only just a few pieces every now and again, or smaller pieces connecting it, because that could give me trouble in the future, being that it could lessen the stability of the layout. So let's go on to one more thing I have to show you guys, and we'll pretty much wrap up this layout update. So another thing I've been working on is mocking up my swing gates, and it's only mocked up temporarily, very temporarily to be exact, just to give me an idea of what I need to do, being that is the first layout where I'm actually going to need these gates. So just some 3/4 inch plywood that I've cut to the width of the gate, and that's just held in place right now, swiveling on a screw. That's why it's not very sturdy. It'll come across like that, and it is square at this end here and angled like that, but I figured out that I could actually have even less of an angle. I can just make this flush with the benchwork, because I thought if I cut it on a 45, which would make this flush to the benchwork, that it would get bigger as it opens, and this corner would end up hitting that the yard benchwork, but that is not the case anymore. So I'm now just gonna go with the right angle that will meet up with that benchwork perfectly. It'll also give me the advantage of less worries about the track not being aligned, being that I'd have to cut it on a bigger angle. So I'll show you the next swing gate, what I've planned for that, and we'll wrap this up. So here is the second swing gate. This is by the entrance of the room, and again, very temporarily mocked up, held in one end by a screw, and it comes in flush with the benchwork down at this end. And that's what I'm talking about when I say lesser of an angle, is that this is straight here, and I'll cut the angle so it comes in straight with this benchwork. Whereas over there I had to cut, well, I cut the angle larger than what it actually needed to be. So when I put the permanent, or do the permanent installation of the swing gate, I'll change that angle. But for right now, these mock-ups are just to give me a really rough idea as to what I need to do in order to complete and build these with some stability, so they don't end up falling apart being used over time. Well, lots being done on the layout this month. I hope you guys enjoyed the layout update. I've been keeping very busy building it and videoing for you guys. That's pretty much it for this layout update, guys. Feel free to ask any questions, comments, likes, and subs are always welcome. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.